Okay, so we're going to record this for online people if they want to know how to walk through the analysis and then, of course, create the analysis report. Let me share my screen really quickly, and I'm going to hope that this pulls up for us. So let's see. For those of you who are attending in real time, would you do me a really big favor? Will you look at, join me via Zoom and then tell me if you can see it on your screen. So go ahead and click on that Zoom link. I just want to make sure that you're able to see my things. I guess, you know what? I know a way around it. You don't have to if you don't want to. Let me do stop share. I'm going to try this again. We're going to share screen and I'll just pull up the grid sheet itself, because then I know for my online people, they'll be able to see. So step number one, you download this document. Remember, this document is within the module, right? It's called the test analysis worksheet or test analysis grid sheet. So the first thing you're doing, you can download and you can type this information. Those of you who are with me in person today, you can handwrite. You do not need to download and type this up. You can just handwrite it. But if you're one of the online people, you're going to just type in this information. Remember, course English 115, you may leave section number blank, the date of the test, the date you took it, what was the grade, what percentage you scored on it. The name of the test was Making Brain Connections, chapter 1. And then, of course, your name here. And then in this column here, you're going to list any of them that you got incorrect. So you got to go back into, oops, sorry, it said it closed because I'm trying to do something. Let's see. And if I can try that again. All right, so you go into the document and in this side, you're going to list the ones that you got incorrect. Now, don't get wigged out. It's not formatted. It's going to be on its side. So, you know, maybe you missed number 3. I listed 3 there. But if you go down farther, they go right side up. So if you want to jump down and go to the bottom, if you're typing this in, then maybe the next one you missed was 9. Maybe you missed 11. Okay, let's pretend I missed 3. So then I go into the test and I look at, okay, number 3, what is the reason I missed number 3? You're allowed to choose one. So let's say maybe I'm going to say I had poor retention. I knew I should have known it, but I didn't remember it at the test. Number 9, I'm going to say, oh, I had a mental block there. And then number 11, I'm going to say I had inadequate notes. And now, again, you look at each one and you choose which one is the primary reason that you got wrong. Remember, you may have more than one, but I want you to choose only one. Okay. So you're going to refer to this sheet when you get to section 3 of the analysis report. And that's what I'm going to talk about right now. So I'm going to stop share. I'm going to close that one out. And I'm going to open up the instructions. So I'm going to talk through the instructions. So for the instructions, I'm going to enable editing here. And I'm going to share my screen again for us. This is called a test exam analysis essay, and this is what you're going to be completing for the work this week. Now, you're going to be doing a draft of it. Draft means it's working. It's not perfect. You may need to make changes. That's okay. But I want you to get through all the sections, and I want to explain it with you now so you know what you need to write about in this particular one. So one of the key things I want you to understand, you should analyze all of your tests. Whenever you get a test result back, you want to analyze. The purpose of analyzing is not really about the score. The score is not as important as you understanding why you achieved a particular score. So let's say you scored a 95. Great, but why did you get the 95? What elements are contributing to that 95? What did you do? So you have to look at those behaviors, actions. Maybe you're missing something. Maybe you had too much of something. All those kinds of things. That's the purpose of why we're analyzing. And that was the grid sheet, by the way. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to write a 5-paragraph. Please pay attention to that. You can see where my mouse is. It is a 5-paragraph analysis essay. Now, before you get wig out, if you look at this, I have it by section. Here we go. Paragraph 1 is the introduction. and then I have these sections, and then you're gonna have a conclusion. So there are your 5 paragraphs, okay? I want you to use this structure. I want this on the essay, okay? And I want this done in this order. I try to make it very straightforward for you. So you're gonna start with an introduction. Remember, I need a paragraph. Within that paragraph, I want you to include the purpose for analyzing your test. I want you to include test information such as what the content was, where the location was you took the test, the day and the time. And then I also want you to include a thesis statement. The thesis statement should include elements that you're analyzing within your process, right? And you're looking at those in test taking behaviors. So that information needs to be in the introduction. Now, heads up, the thesis should be the last thing in your paragraph. It's the last sentence, okay? So you might want to talk about, in this one, you're going to have the introduction, you got to have a full paragraph. So if you had to include the purpose for analyzing your test, what might be one of the purposes for analyzing your test? I mean, what's something, let's brainstorm. What is something you might talk about or say for that? So my question to you is, what is the purpose of analyzing a test? What's the purpose behind it? Why should you do that?
To understand the facts of the question.
Okay, so to understand elements of it that you can either improve on or that you're already doing well, right? You can't get better at something unless you know what you're not doing well, right? Just like a sport, you don't improve on it unless you know to address specific things that are not working for you, right? So the purpose is right along that line, and the fact that you analyze your test. The purpose of doing this is to make yourself aware, right, of things that are working for you and helping you achieve certain correct answers, and also to make you aware of things that maybe you need to address or change. Does that make sense? So that's what you want to phrase in there, and that could be a sentence or two. Then I want you to talk about test information, content, location, day, and time. So you would say something like, I'm analyzing the test over chapter 1, making brain connections. I took my test on February 7th at about midnight, and I did it on my bed in my own room. So, something along those lines, okay? And just make it appropriate to whatever you did. Then you would end, you would say, what I found for my analysis is, and then you address those next 3. I found that my previewing process, quote unquote, is working for me, or I need to improve, or I need to change. My study process is a little weak. I need to maybe beef that up, or my study process is working fine for me. I scored the way I want to score, you know, those kinds of things. And then the third one, which is test taking process, how you're taking the test. So in your thesis, it's 1 sentence, but it'll be a little bit longer of a sentence. And I want you to mention all 3 of those things: previewing process, study process, test taking process. So those need to be contained within your thesis. So in other words, you're telling the reader right up front, here are some things that I found. I found my previewing process was spot on and fabulous and working for me. However, my study process needs improvement, and my test taking process, although working well for my score, needs to be addressed. Okay, those are my words, not your words. You do it by what you feel you found in your analysis. Does that make sense now for the introduction? Okay, great. So that's 1 paragraph right there. Next, no, you're laughing. Do you not think you'll get a paragraph, or do you think you'll have more than a paragraph?
I have more than a paragraph.
And that's totally fine. So there is no penalty for more. But if you go thin on it, then what happens is you're not really thinking about it and addressing things. And that's a very common comment. I might say, I noticed you did not have your study process addressed in your thesis, or something like that. All right, paragraph 2. Now, if it makes you comfortable in this particular essay, you may use these headings. Start the heading and then do the writing underneath the heading. That is totally acceptable. Just make sure when you do the headings, you have to be consistent with style and size of font. So what that means is everything has to be done in Times New Roman style font size 12, including the headings. You can't have giant headings and large headings. You gotta have them the same size as the rest of the paper. You are allowed to bold your heading, but nothing else. So if you want to bold it, that's fine, but that's it. Okay. Section 1, this paragraph, you're going to describe the process that you personally used to do the reading selection. FYI, what was the reading selection? Anybody remember?
Chapter 1.
Yeah, chapter 1. Absolutely. Chapter 1 in the textbook. So you describe the process you used to read the selection. Tell me what you did. What was that process? Ding, ding, ding. You should be talking about active reading, right? If you just say, I opened it and looked at it, I read and reread, that is not what I'm looking for there, right? You're telling me, what did you do during the reading process? You have to demonstrate your understanding of interactive reading by describing various strategies you did to support your understanding. Now, the caveat here is quite often students didn't do anything. I shouldn't say that, that's not fair, not quite often. Upon occasion, a student didn't do anything. They didn't read, they didn't do anything. I don't want you to lie. I mean, it's just, this analysis is for you to learn from, not to just give me what I want. It's meant to be meaningful. So if you're one of them, that's totally fine. You say, I did not engage in any interactive reading process for this chapter. I didn't even read the chapter. So then what I want you to write about is, after that, what are some things you could have and or should have done to be interactive with the text? Does that make sense? So don't tell me you did something if you didn't. It doesn't really serve any purpose. Just go through motions. What I want you is thinking about things. And so if you didn't read the chapter, hey, this might be something you want to change at the next test or the next quiz, right? You may want to do some reading. How are you going to read? What are you going to do? Okay. All right. Section 2, the study process. In this paragraph, I want you to talk to me about how did you prepare for the exam? What did you do? What process did you use to review? How did you determine what information was important, what wasn't? How much time did you spend time on big stuff, or did you end up really eating up your time with non-essential details? Were you trying to memorize facts and figures? You know, what exactly were you doing? How is your review process different since you did your first reading of this? Were you confident in your understanding of the material? Did you feel like you were just trying to memorize meaningless information? I mean, these are just kind of things I want you to be talking about. So let me give you a piece of advice in this section. Number 1, you should be telling me how you studied. Once again, if you did not study, you didn't do anything to prepare. That's what you say. And then just tell me some things that you could have done, or you feel maybe you should have done, that would have been helpful in a study process. One of the things I'm looking for, I do not want to see a certain phrasing in there because it's not studying. What is the phrase that's going to be red flagged and will get my attention the quickest? You have an idea? We talked about this a couple of times. It is not studying. Students always want to say, this is what they did to study. It is not studying. Close. I mean, that's right on top. Reading or rereading, right? Reading is not studying. Why do you read? You read to understand, right? I'm not saying you don't have to read. You need to read. And you may need to reread, but that's not part of the study process. That's what you do before you begin studying. Studying is an active process. What are you doing with that information to help get it into long-term memory? Did you create flashcards? Did you make notes? Did you rewrite notes, or did you make a mind map, or did you do quizzing with somebody else? That kind of thing. Those are active elements for the study process. A very common response I get from students is, I studied for 2 hours and I still didn't score. When I ask them, what did you do to study? All they say, they, read and reread the chapter. That was the first thing out of their mouth. That's not studying. You have to read, you have to reread, because you got to understand it. Because your brain will not process anything into long-term memory unless you understand it. But that's not part of the study process. Okay. Any questions on that section? Okay, section 3, test taking process. Now, keep in mind, test taking process is separate from these other two. So don't talk about any of the test taking stuff in section 1 where it's previewing, where you're reading the chapter, right? Don't talk about it in the studying. Section 3, you're talking about literally when you sat down to complete the test. Anything during that time. So I want you to talk about strategies and behaviors you used during the test. So while that test was open for an hour, you're talking about that time. And you're talking about strategies and behaviors you did that, and what of them contributed to your score. Okay. This is that exam analysis worksheet. We just finished that grid sheet. So you're looking at them, and are you noticing things? Did you have exam panic? Right? Did you not reread the question? Did you not choose the best answer? Also go back and thinking, did I do my deep breathing? Did I have everything connected properly? Was I not distracted? These are all things that affect the test taking, okay? I want you to specifically address if you did well on the exam in your mind. If you did well, what contributed to your scoring well? Same thing, if you didn't score the way you wanted to score, what do you think contributed? Again, look to the grid sheet, because the items you checked will be items that are contributing to your score, okay? And then conclusion, this last section. What did you learn about yourself from this test? How effective was the reading process? How effective was review? How effective was test taking? What did you learn about analyzing and taking a look back at that test? Did you learn that you have a really good study process, or did you learn that maybe you don't have a study process and you need one? Okay. I want you to address if there were any patterns. So if you saw a pattern on that grid sheet, I want you to talk about it. If you didn't have a pattern, don't worry about it. You do need to list your grade. What was your grade for this test? And then I want you to tell me, were you satisfied or not satisfied with that grade? And then I want you to tell me why. So a really good example of this is I had a student who got I think it was a 62%, and was absolutely delighted and very satisfied with the score. The rationale, in other words, why that person was happy, because they had never passed a test before. In high school, they had always failed tests. And so that was progress. They're able to achieve, which is absolutely fantastic. That's fine. You determine if you're satisfied with your score or not me, right? So look at it, and I also get the other realm. I'll get someone with like a 98% and they're completely unsatisfied because they were going for the perfect score or something like that, right? Now, what I want you, when you tell me why you're satisfied or not satisfied, the big thing is, what are you going to do differently next time? If you have no intention of raising score, in other words, that's not a big deal for you, you got an 87%, as far as you're concerned, everything's working right, you can certainly say that, saying, the things I'm doing now seem to be working for me, and I will just continue on in my same methods, right? However, if you're not satisfied, what are you going to do differently next time? And don't be general. You got to be very specific here. Don't tell me you're going to study more or study harder. That's a general. That doesn't say anything, and it doesn't commit you to any action. What are you gonna specifically do? Like maybe one of the things, I don't know if this is what you choose, maybe you're gonna choose. I'm gonna commit to having a full set of Cornell notes on all of the material that's presented for next time to help me study. Okay, that could be an option for you, right? You determine what you're gonna do. But I am warning you, if you give me general terms on this, it will not score as high as if you're very specific of what you will do differently next time. So far, so good on that. Okay, don't forget. This needs to be done in Microsoft Word. It's a Microsoft Word document, and you need to adhere to MLA document design. What does that mean? Follow those writing requirements. I want you to follow the structure and the instructions, so I want to see those 5 paragraphs. You are allowed to use those headings that I have given if you want. Make sure it is Times New Roman style font, size 12, okay? Make sure your document uses double spacing and 1-inch margins, okay? If you want to know about how long this will be when it's done, you should be hitting approximately 2 pages. It's not a hard and fast rule, but if you're not hitting close to 2 pages, it means you're not developing one of these adequately into a paragraph, okay? You are allowed to use first person. If you don't know what that means, it means you're allowed to use I and you. So when you're talking about this, it's a narrative form, so it's allowable to say I did this, I did that. That's totally acceptable. Okay. Don't worry about any citations or sourcing for this. There's none required because you're doing a narrative. Okay, that's the instructions. I'm going to X out of this. Okay, and now I'm going to open up my next one. Now, let's see. So that's what you're working on as a draft. So when you get this done, you need to submit the draft in our forum. That's what I'm asking for you this module, in module 6. You need to submit it in the forum. So if you take a look, this is the only activity. The forum is the only thing getting graded this week. And when you open that forum, it tells you you need to upload your draft. And then what you're going to do after you upload your draft, you need to go in and review 2 other peers and give them feedback on their drafts. Okay. So I want to talk about, you need to use the peer review form. Again, this is found in our module, cleverly titled peer review form. Okay. It is an interactive document, which means it's a Microsoft Word document. You simply need to open or download and you can type right on it. So let me pull this up for my online people. I'm going to share screen here. So the document looks like this. So you need to open this document up. First of all, you go in and you have to read someone else's. You go and look at their file and read it, right? And then you need to give them feedback. Now, please notice in the directions, I want to really warn you about this. Before you review anybody else's, you must have already uploaded your own draft. You don't get to review someone else's until you have uploaded your own. If you have never uploaded a file to a discussion forum, I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Okay? So this is the form. You have to address everything on this form. So number 1, do you see that your classmate has an introduction? Yes or no? Check it for this. Does it include the purpose for analyzing the test? Test information. Okay, again, yes or no. Now the caveat here is if they have it and you answer yes, that's sufficient. If you answer no to anything in this form, you need to give them a suggestion. You need to type in a suggestion. So for example, on this one, maybe you see your classmate has an introduction? Yes. Okay, check the following. Does it include purpose, for analyzing the test, information, et cetera, and you say no, then tell them missing, what are you missing? You need to include blah, 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 because you didn't have it, right? Same thing for number 2, 3, and 4. If they have a thesis, you need to list the thesis. So you find if they have a thesis, and then you copy paste it there. If they don't have a thesis, you say no, and then what is your suggestion? You need to have a thesis statement in your introduction. Okay? Same thing for A, same thing for B, 3, and 4. That makes sense. Now, on number 4 in particular, make sure you're very specific in your instructions or suggestions, I should say. Tell them if you find a mistake or you think something should be changed, or for example, I use spell check. Don't just say do a spell check. Tell them you may want to do a spell check on the word to because you're using an incorrect homonym. You're using it as a number instead of a destination, right? So be very specific in your feedback. So that's the peer review form. Now I do want to quickly show you, let me get out of this. I want to show you where these things are in the module before I show you how to upload the file in our forum. So I'm going to share my screen again. I'm on my Moodle page. Okay. So if you notice, I have resources. You can go in here. And when you open that up, over on the right side, there are our direct items and they're labeled. So for example, if you've never done a thesis statement, you don't know how to do it, there is a resource on how to write a thesis statement, and it will talk about that. I give you the test exam analysis essay instructions. Okay, this is the same instructions that are on that document, right? If you want any of the documents, the specific documents, let me quick get there. I don't know if I'm sharing the correct screen for my online, so I'm going to reopen it again. Here we go. Look here. You see those green things? Those are hot links. When you click on them, those are documents you can download, or they take you to a website that I think you will find helpful. But I tried to label them. So for example, the first one, exam analysis grid worksheet. There you go. Download that baby, right? Fill that out. Test exam analysis essay instructions. That stuff I just talked about. Those that's the document. Download that document if you want to look at it in print form or have it on your computer. So that's where you find them. One of them also up at the top says peer review form. Once again, you can download that one, right? You with me so far? Okay. Now what I want to show you. So when you are uploading your draft, most students don't realize how to do this. So this is why I'm showing it on the video and why I've recorded the class session today. Oh, I gotta go. Sorry, I'm gonna go to student view really quick, so that I don't confuse you. Okay, so this is the way it looks to you. And if I want to add discussion topic, okay, so I'm going to say my, whatever, my test analysis draft, cleverly titled, right? And I don't know, you can write something clever. Please review my draft. Okay. So you're telling the class, please review. And then you click, do you see that advanced word at the bottom of the box? Click on advanced. And what's going to happen is it's going to open a new box to you. You see, now you have an extra box and you can upload files. So then all you do is you click into that icon, choose the file from wherever you have it. We'll pretend it's this one. We're going to open. And then I'm gonna upload the file. You see it there? It's waiting for me. And then all you gotta do is post to forum. So far, so good? Okay. FYI, it works the exact same way for reply. When you do a reply to someone and you have to upload that peer form, you click reply. And then you go to advanced, it'll open a new box, upload the form that you've already typed and saved on your computer. And then post to them, and then they will be able, and I will be able to see what you completed for the peer review form. So a lot of students are not familiar with that. That's why I thought it would be beneficial for us to kind of show that. All right. That is going to be module 6. I am going to stop share and end because I don't think we need to record any discussion for my online people. And I'm going to take questions and concerns.